Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Get ready for a ride before I introduce you to our guest. Here's a quote just for this episode. There is nothing impossible for who will try. Alexander the Great. Our guest today is great. Before I introduce to you who they are, if you haven't listened to episode 130 and episode 319 and episode 368, our dear friend, the one and only Jeff Silva, gets to work every day with this person. I got to meet this person from our former guests that I just shouted out those episodes. I've known them since 2017 when I had a gong and some truck nuts and some calls to people that could easily be cold or considered that calls that only lead to disappointment. And I'll tell you this right now, we made hot calls together. We connected with people, and I got to make a friend for life, the sales director of the Silva Group, who's been a teacher his whole life, I think. Stephen Ronald joins us here on the Culture Matters podcast, and I'm so grateful to have him on for so many reasons. Thank you for coming on the show, man. Thanks for staying in my life and not leaving with all those other people.
Jay, thanks for having me.
Man,
So, great introduction. Uh, I can remember the first day that I met you. Um, Goes back a little ways, where you would actually hang the phone up on me if I wasn't going fast enough or chanting the scripts. I remember actually being outside on my porch, and if I said one word or two words off because it didn't fit the script properly, hung up, bang. And then of course you taught me the 4 minute mile, and so all these things
Roger
resonate
Mason.
and everything, as far as tonality and things of that nature. So thanks for all those conversations. And then of course, coming to the office and formally meeting you, and with your with your gold sash around your neck, where several people in the office didn't really like it. But hey, it wasn't a cold call, it was a hot call, and you were setting the stage for excellence and opportunity. So uh, some people didn't quite get you, but the ones on the other end of the line did get you, and that's how you connect it with them. And then obviously, as life transpired since 2017, you obviously went out and connected with many people along the way, and hence here we are. So
Thank you. Why is it important to connect to you on a conversation with you know, someone that could become a customer? They're not already a customer. Many people that listen to our show are in sales, even if they don't realize that they are. So what's important about connection to you? Because you've been connecting with people over the phone for years and years and years, and you've been selling since Canon.
yeah, I think well, let's face it, regardless of where we're selling or if we're in sales or not, life is about selling. You're always selling yourself, regardless of what occupation you're in. You have to go out and get what you want, and that's a job. I don't care if you're working in the school cafeteria or if you're a CEO of a company. You have to go out and sell yourself on why you're the best at what you do. And it all starts with a connection. It starts with, filling out a resume or following up with a phone call or door knocking for an opportunity. So for you to figure out what you do to separate yourself from the next person, you're always doing that. And I feel that at this point in the stage of the game, it's only getting more competitive.
Really?
From, let's say, when I graduated high school in 1992, it was competitive versus, say, 1996 when I graduated college. You were filling out a resume on hard stock paper and hoping that somebody was going to call you back, and maybe you followed up with them, to now, you know, people that want to go out and get a job. You're not only making the phone call, but you're following up with everything and anything through social media. So the world is so in your face as far as the multimedias go.
Hmm.
So everything is a connection on selling, regardless of how you look at it.
How do you keep your composure? And so the audience understands you have been on the phone with strangers for years and you haven't quit.
Well, whether you're working on a client to process for a home, to have them purchase or sell, or if you're looking to recruit an agent, it's all perseverance, and that's sales, and that's life in general, right? So a no is one step closer to a yes, and
When
that's
you
life.
when you first started, what was your what was the was there a physical response? Like, did you get a stomach ache when people said no, or did you ever want to throw up, or get any kind of like, or did you have in the very, very, very beginning?
No, I mean, I got tough skin. I mean, you, you're you're in tune with everything that happens to you in your life, whether it's sports or coaching sports or being involved with different things of that nature. Um, I think that your previous dispositions make you who you are. So those kinds of things don't. I mean, you don't get butterflies from things like that. It's a conversation.
How do you think people mess that conversation up in the like before it even starts? Because a lot of
So
our
it's
listeners are gonna have to call people or engage with people, door knocking, what have you, something straight, right? It's a anomalous, it's unknown. How do they mess it up before they even start?
So a couple things. It goes back. Interesting thing that you say. One of the things I believe that you taught me right from the get-go when we were coaching together, when you were coaching with me or helping me through different processes, one of the things that stuck out in my mind that you said years ago was tonality. That people can read you immediately through a call, posture. Um, a lot of times that if you're making a call, you want to be upright, standing, things of that nature. The tonality in your voice, people can tell when you're, hey, this is Jay Duran, da, 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 as opposed to, hey, this is Jay Duran. You know how when you were really vocal in what you wanted, and people sense that. And obviously, you want to mirror match and things of that nature. But coming across with confidence, people want to deal with confident people, things of that nature.
What about the questions?
Great
Creating,
point.
yeah, yeah,
So
go ahead.
you definitely want to be on script. There's certain scripts out there that I would recommend at this point. One of the scripts that we're following to a T is Jeff Glover. Jeff seems to really be in the game right now.
Sure.
He's just phenomenal. He actually ran a conference out in Scottsdale, Arizona this past week. But if you get a chance to listen to what Jeff's doing, his presentations, I mean, he's living, breathing, sleeping, and just experiencing everything, the cutting edge, as to what's happening instantly in the marketplace. And he's able to pivot immediately if something's not working well. So that's something
Wow.
that we're really, really following closely.
What, why is pivoting important? Being able to pivot,
Well,
being able to.
Well, if we don't pivot quickly as to what the market's doing and changing, it's either get on the bus or get run over by the bus, right? There's certain agents out there that are doing things that are old-fashioned that worked really well in the 80s and 90s, and by all means, they're still working, but maybe not to the level that he's teaching it. So, if you pivot to the way the market is going and the way that people respond today, you're going to have more success. So it's incredibly important to pivot. It's just like anything, sports change. I could take the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, right now. And I could draw this comparison that the running back in professional sports sort of died out. And then, Saquon Barkley came back and has really rejuvenated that position. And the Eagles figured out a way to, smash mouth football, use a guy with finesse in the running game, and now the league's going to have to adapt to um, having more, draft running back style guys into the league again in the next 2 or 3 years because it's really working well for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow.
So you have to pivot. If we stay, if we're not growing, we're dying. So that's something that we have to really, really consider.
Are there any things that stick out with that specific coach of that running back that you think helps?
As far as football goes,
Yeah, it seems like you're really knowledgeable on that analogy. Is there some things
well,
that stick out to you when you're
um,
watching that?
well, he was not a successful running back in New York, and they didn't have an offensive line. But you put him in front of a great offensive line, and holes pop. So
Hmm.
we just have to be able to see how that position can really change the dynamics of a team sport. And in real estate, in a way, when you're using people on the back end to make calls, um, and then you're using an agent or you're using a transaction coordinator, and you're using all these pieces of the puzzle. We have to figure out how we can pivot and make a team more successful, especially in a more challenging market.
Yeah, what are some of the elements for the realtors that are listening to this that are unclear of their future within the home they're in now, like the organization they're within now? What should they be looking for in the market like this, in your view? Some of the
So,
elements.
I mean, they have to look at an organization as to what are the value propositions that the organization's providing for them. One of the things we were part of an organization, and I'm not going to get into which. We were in a large box organization. We since left that organization and we jumped over to OCF Realty, which was a great opportunity for us because the owner of the company, Ori Feisbush, he's a forward thinker. Anything that we're looking to do, he's all ears in expansion. Right now, we're at 1936 Washington Avenue. The building's, it's roughly 8,000 square foot. We're going to be moving out of that building in Philadelphia and moving down the street to a 60,000 square foot building, just to accommodate a growing operation. Um, it's something that because it's growing so quickly, the culture is very, very good in that Philadelphia operation. Not only do we have that, we have a Margate office and we have a Flowertown operation. So what does he do well? What has Ori placed with all of the people that work there? Uh, there's a lot of opportunity. It's a three-headed monster. We have a leasing aspect of the business that people can participate in. We have the sales side, of course, and we have a development side. And one of the things that's encouraged is there's development courses offered. Um, Not only would you be affiliated with if you want to sell real estate or become part of the leasing operation, but you can take development courses to better yourself to become a flipper or whatever you want to do within the operation. So it's not just like you come on board and you want to be a realtor. You can do a bunch of your own ventures as well through the company. So it allows you to grow, in other words. The
Hmm.
circle that Ori creates constantly grows bigger and bigger and bigger, because as long as his circle is expanding, everybody's circle within his circle constantly expands.
What was it about? And now, how long have you been working with Jeff, one of our regular guests, has been on the show many times. How long have you been working with him?
So I have been working with Jeff since 2017, and that was about when I met
Wow,
you. And we
almost 10 years.
yes, and we've since switched over since I met you, we since switched over with OCF, and that was just a little over a year ago.
What would you say are some of Jeff's attributes that have made him so successful over the years?
Well, let me start with this. Jeff built his business 22 years ago, and he built it in King of Prussia, and he sacrificed 7 days a week to build this business. Um, with that, the attributes that I would really say is that he is all about providing the highest level of service to his clients. And he's not going to, shortchange anybody. I don't care if it's a $300,000 house or a $3 million property. The goal for our team is to provide the same level of service, whether it's a $300,000 property or a $3 million property. He's always lived under the auspices of we're going to raise the level, the standard of doing business in the real estate community. That to me is very important, that he doesn't necessarily tell people what they want to hear. He tells them what they need to hear, because it comes down to honesty and integrity for the actual operation itself, for what the people that he's serving. So he's truly committed and dedicated to the people that he's serving.
People
His
say that
clients.
clients like so.
Yes.
What would be an example in the years that you've worked alongside? Because, and they ask because our listeners who may not have the bias that I have of spending time with you guys in the physical world might hear that and say, that's what the last person told me
Right.
before they stabbed me right in the back.
Now it
So,
makes
sir,
sense.
like what, yeah,
So
how would, yeah, what's the spirit of that observation?
no, sure. So I mean, there's multiple times we'll be out, appointment wise. We take a listing. It's constantly you know perpetuating the idea that we're always in the corner of our list, our seller, negotiating on their behalf, on their best terms, you know, all those attributes, you know, telling them exactly what they need to hear, going out, I'll give you another example, not just taking a listing to take a listing that's completely overpriced that we know won't sell. There's a lot of that goes on. Um, Being honest and upfront, those
Why
kind
is
of
that so
things.
hard?
Um, it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Um, I find that a lot of times, there's people in the marketplace, they'll do whatever it takes to take a listing and then try to uh, work the price down or whatever the case is. We really like to work within the confines of what the true value is and explain to a person up front, hey, look, hey, look, if you want to list it for $2.5 million when the property is 1.6, okay, that's fine. We'll list it for 2.5, but in the contract, understand that after 2 weeks, we're going to do a $200,000 price reduction. And then again, in two weeks, we're going to do another 200,000 until we get to where we really feel the number is. Otherwise, we don't really want to take a listing like that. Now, if you're
What
on
are some
board
of the
with that,
motivation? Or go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
well, if you're on board with that, then we'll take the listing. But ultimately, we're not in the business of overpromising and underdelivering.
Why?
Um, it's almost like it's fraud. It just does a disservice to the person that is listing the property because ultimately, the longer a property sits on the market, it devalues a property. And in a way, it kind of devalues our industry.
What do you think the reason buyers' prices become like the concept of what? I'm sorry, not a buyer, seller's concept of the value of their property can become so far away from reality.
Well, Jay, I talk to people every day and they're, hey, I got the best lot and the best location and da 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 da. And then, hey, I just updated my property. I did X, Y, and Z. And, it's with all due respect to what they did, it's not really up to the taste of what the market is trending towards. They did something that was very trendy 10 years ago and and I look, I'm not here to knock anybody's style. That's fine. But when a buyer comes in, they're going to take that into consideration as far as what the true value of the property is. And uh, every home is one a person's castle, and they put so many years of sweat equity into it, or they raise their family there, so they're emotionally attached to this item, this home. So they feel that they're going to get more out of this property than perhaps what the market is really telling them. And I'll be the first one to tell them, look, you know, I don't dictate the value. You don't dictate the value. What really dictates the value is what the consumer is willing to spend.
What are some of the factors that and help us understand what the consumers are willing to spend? Is that the comparable analysis?
Yeah, comps. There's a lot that what we'll do is if multiple homes in the neighborhood have sold, we'll go back and see if there's still buyers or buyer opportunities or how many people lost out on, X, Y, or Z in that neighborhood, and perhaps make calls within that, circle prospect within that neighborhood and say to, hey, Mr. Duran, I don't know if you're aware, but your neighbor Sally down the street had, five offers come in with $50,000 over asking price, and there's still three other buyers out there. Are you interested in buying or selling this spring, et cetera, et cetera? And you'd be surprised. Some people are absolutely shocked on the value of what they're getting. So
What's their
you're
response?
exactly right. That's one way.
Hmm.
So
How
comps, definitely.
I was thinking earlier, once to say this, someone could eat that's listening to this could have very well easily have already put too much of their capital, whether borrowed or cash reserves, into their home as a consequence of who knows what, maybe a interpersonal, issue or a marital conflict or just general angst. And what you're saying is just because somebody puts so much in their house doesn't necessarily mean they'll ever see that return. It depends on the market, what the market is willing to give them. And so that could lead to a seller having a very different view of the value of their house based on what they put into it in relationship to what buyers would really be willing to pay. Is that what you're saying?
100% correct.
So when you're building relationships with potential customers, is part of the fact finding to figure out who the Looney Tunes are? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that.
That's that's part of it, but it's interesting, um, some of the people that you come across, or you come across, I mean, expireds are coming back right now. Um, that's a hot item, right? Why didn't the house sell in the first place? And now you're fact finding as to why. And so you never know what you're going to come across.
Oh, that's interesting about the expireds. I wonder how much that has to do with just the softening of the pricing.
Right. So I always lead off by, when I get into it, I explain to them that there's three reasons why it doesn't sell. It typically comes down to price, condition, or marketing. And of those three reasons, which one of those three or a combination of the three stopped your house from selling? And keep in mind that while location is everything, the things that we can control are the price, we can control the marketing, and we can control the condition. And all three of those things have a factor. But unless we're going to pick that house up and move it, it's you know, kind of a moot point.
Something else I'm thinking about, I want your opinion on this. Let's say I'm new in the business. I could have my own agenda to just take a listing or three listing or seven listings to just frame myself as an authority to start getting other opportunities. So why would I bother telling a customer what I think is in best use for them if my intention is really just to get some opportunity or some branding myself? I could be collecting listings to get perceived credibility from having them
Right.
versus
That's
advising a potential customer. I could also be accepting any old listing at any price to get to capitalize on the buyer calls that do call.
that's true. But hopefully, people see through that and your credibility's out the door. Because your first job is to the fiduciary, which is your seller. And if you're overpricing something so much to the point that you're not serving them, it becomes an issue.
Well, oh, yeah, I'm in agreement with that culture-wise, right? But it's not like I've had to go to college for 4 years
Correct.
to have the opportunity with a license. I could have become a bartender more quickly and more slowly than a realtor. So uh, if I'm the consumer, how do I trust? Who do I trust? So for the listeners to this that are going to buy a home or sell a home, what questions should they be asking or ways that they should be look? Because everybody that's listening to this either owns a home and selling it, or owns a home is buying another, or owns four and is buying the eighth, or will own a home, unless of course a guru told them to just rent, which they should not listen to that advice, in my view. So if, for the listeners that are either own a home and buy another, or sell one, or gonna buy one, what questions or how should they interview for the right advisor if
It's a
the
great question.
access to becoming one of the advisors is as
That
available as a bartender. I mean, I use that as an example. It's not like getting a Series 7.
right. Now that's a great question. I mean, I would definitely, you know, look at reviews, look at reviews online. That's one place I would certainly um, ask the right questions. For example, ask how a house is priced. On many people's websites, such as ours, we will specifically put on the site, how aggressive do you, as the consumer, where do you want to be? Do you want to do you want to price it to the market? Do you want to, it'll sell in X number of days. Do you want to price it 15% over the market? This is what's going to happen. And we, it's a question and answer situation with the potential client. But these are all questions that the client should be asking. Where do you price the property in relationship to where the you know what the fair market value is? How many showings do you feel that the property is going to get in the first week or two in the spring market? What's a good amount for this property? Oh, what should we be seeing after the first week in this specific location? Everything is very hyper local right now. You might go out to Ambler, PA, and the market is so hot right now as far as various properties. And you could go into another zip code right around there, and it might not be as hot. So just you have to ask the right questions as far as pricing, your background. Do you work with buyer agents typically, or do you work with listing agents? If you're a buyer agent, you might want to find somebody that really lists properties, because I've come across people that have told me, "Hey, I'm just going to go back with the person that sold me this house." And my question to them is, "Oh, great. Well, do they typically just work with buyers, or are they listing agents as well?" Because it's a whole different skill set. So ask those questions. Do you typically work with buyers, or are you a listing agent?
How important are agent relationships?
Oh,
From an agent standpoint, I'm an agent and I want to
very
best serve my customers. How important are agent to agent
agent to
relations
agent.
in the transaction? And from your experience,
They're exceptionally important. I mean, the better the relationships are, you know, between KW and, you know, it, whatever it is, outside of different companies, the more relationships you can establish, the better off you're going to be. Because let's face it, if there's deals or if there's opportunities that are close in multiple offer situations, um, you know, things can just work out well in your best interest. People, let's face it, people know it's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody.
for the realtors that actually are successful, not just on Instagram, but like in reality, what would you think they do? Like what do they do? What are their daily activities, their behaviors, their habits, their
It's a great question. So I believe the best and shortest answer I can give you is they separate their morning routine from their afternoon routine. Meaning the morning routine is you're getting up, you're doing whatever you do in the morning to get ready. Your mindset, you're preparing your mind, um, you're making your calls. Typically, our days look like we try to make our calls like if you're calling expireds, you got to be on at 8 to 9. Some agents do it, some don't. Your more successful ones are right now. The ones on our team that are doing 45 and 50 deals a year are. They work those expireds. They're making calls till about, anywhere. Some of them are doing 9 to 11:30. and then there's a meeting or whatever the case is, and then the afternoons are set for showings and follow-up calls. So it's important that you reserve your mornings for new business and your afternoons for follow-up and your showings and your appointments, things of that nature.
I watched million dollar listings, and I thought it was about Rolls Royces, nice suits, and jets. Is it, or is that TV?
I, I don't have time to watch that. You'd be a better judge than me.
How many people do you think you've talked to in the last 8 years of calling?
Oh my
How many,
gosh.
how many people?
I don't know.
How many days a week have you done it?
Um,
8 years.
I would probably say, oh geez,
Or how many weeks in a
um,
week? Let's just
like
reduce it to the
six
ridiculous.
days a week, making connections.
That'll be 312 times 8, 2496. Just 2,496. Just under 2,500 days. How many hours a day do
Yeah,
you think you've done it?
I mean that would vary because of a lot of other activities.
So you think less than 2,500 days of calling?
Um, I mean a lot are like half days with different work projects to do and things like that and meetings and
On a day where you call, how many hours do you think you've called?
um I mean you could do 6 if it works out, 5
How many
solid.
humans do you think that you could talk to in 5 or 6 hours in real life, not just these
I mean
silly
realistically,
KPIs
I
that
mean
are
on it,
listed,
I
right?
mean years ago, I've gotten to 100, but typically now you're probably like 40, 45 on a good day.
Contacts.
Yeah. But see, the biggest thing right now for us, I think, is in and let's put it this way. Business is neither good nor bad. Business is only what it is between your ears, right? So people can sit here and complain that the market's tight, the market's this, the market's that. Um, while there's less transactions, there's a lot of people leaving the field because they just can't get it done, right? Um, which gives us more opportunity, right? There's always
How many people are leaving?
right now. I mean, I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but people are not renewing their licenses. So your guess in terms of the estimate is as good as mine. I can just
You
tell
know
you
why
that.
this is great?
Why?
Because, yeah,
Why? You
this is
tell me, and
why.
then I'll tell you why I think it's great.
Yeah, because easy times, hard times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people. Weak people create hard times. Hard times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people. Weak people create hard times. Hard times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people. Weak
Hmm.
people create hard times.
Yep.
The last
So,
years or 15 years, the government giving us free money through quantitative easing. Easy times create weak people. Weak people create hard times. Hard times are a consequence of when the values go down, the culture breaks. The ethics snap. Hard work, sacrifice, service creates ethics.
Hmm.
It's a separating of the wheat from the chaff. The less people that are there, it's the less phonies. Only the strong survive. Herbert Spencer, The Survival of the Fittest. Herbert Spencer, the sociologist, polymath. I would say that culture, yeah, Dr. Peterson said in his magnum opus, 469 page textbook, Maps a Meeting, in the opening paragraph, halfway through in his preface, he says, if the structure of culture is disrupted, chaos returns. We will do anything to defend ourselves against that return. So I'm excited about the state of the industry because when things tighten, right, easy times create weak people create hard times create strong people. They also separate the wheat from the chaff. They force more work with less reward in the short term. And work with less reward is a challenge to values and ethics. Values and ethics, because to work, to serve, and to sacrifice with less reward relative and little to
Hmm.
no means that we have to have vision, we have to have a mission, we have to, well, we have had to have ourselves set up for that time. Like we have to, we that means we had reserves and our stores were full. We were less likely decadent and overextended and living in sin. So that's why I'm excited. Separate the wheat from the chaff, and it's a challenge to ethics and values.
And you're exactly right. And that's what's going on. Because, and I would say this, that a lot of the people that were in this business that were taking opportunity that the general consumer was doing business with, when I would see the level of service that the actual consumer was getting, it was mind blowing. Like, what? Are you kidding me? How was this happening? But anyway, I feel like over time that's going to go away, just like you said. The weak man will and the weak woman will go away, and ultimately, tough times create strong people. The strong will, the cream will rise to the top ultimately, and that's what we're going to see. So
If some of that cream wants to rise with you, how can they contact you and start a connection to connect with you to see if they tell the truth, if they're willing to put in the work? You mentioned 22 years of building a book on sacrifice.
yeah,
How
so
do they connect
so
with you?
yeah, so Jay, just so they're aware, we are looking for an agent or two in the South Jersey, Atlantic County, Cape May County market, onshore, offshore. There's opportunity there. And I'm also looking for a Delaware County agent and a Philadelphia agent. Um, those marketplaces, there's a lot of opportunity. We brought on two girls last year in our PA market. Just if anyone cares to know, both girls more than doubled what they did in transactions last year. And it was a big win-win for everybody. It was a win for them. It was a win for our organization. So for them to join us, obviously it has to be a win for the individual and a win for our team, and a win for everybody. So they can always call me 609-425-9136, or contact me at Stephen, Stephen, at soldbysilva.com. And it's pretty much that's it.
If you're listening to this, befriend Steven, even if you just want to make a great friend.
There you go.
And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Share this with somebody in real estate you know. that has no idea what really is going on. And we'll see you next time on the Culture
Thank
Matters
you.
podcast. Thank you.